Hello, welcome back to another video. We're going to continue our Make a Game in VR series, and in this one we're going to take a look at the canvas that pops up when you shoot the target. Let's have a look. But first of all, I want to give a big thank you to the following people: Marcus Landstrom, Virtual Mind, Won Fyong Choi, Javon Poulter, VR Animated, Eli L, Exodus, Harold Gunderson, and Briff Flabbin. Thank you very much for supporting me over there on Patreon. It really does mean a lot and makes the world of difference. Thanks again, and let's continue with the video. Okay, so the first thing we're going to want to do is just simply create a canvas. I'm not going to show you that in the video. I'm sure you guys can figure it out, but it just needs to be very simple. It's going to be a canvas that appears over the target once we've shot it, and it's going to look a little like this. I've got it in my prefab folder called Score Canvas Prefab. I dragged that in there. Where the hell's it gone? Oh yeah, and you see it's down here. And what I've got at the moment is a very tiny world space canvas with a TextMesh Pro TextMesh Pro text in there, which is going to hold the score. And all that's going to happen is once the user shoots a target, like over here, this is going to pop in just above and let us know the score for that particular target. And then it's going to delete or animate away, however you want to do it. So go ahead, create that Score Canvas prefab, small little canvas. Mine's 1/2 meter by 1/4 meter, and it's got some TextMesh Pro object in there as a child. And then I'm just going to go ahead and delete that. So what happens when we shoot that target, it's just going to instantiate it, and that's all. We can control that through our actual target. So if I go ahead and turn one on, this is what gets turned on once we've shoot to start, if that makes sense. Select that target and press Shift and H, and it's going to isolate that selection. And you can see on this target object we have our target script, which is controlling everything to do with our target. So it makes sense to instantiate that canvas from this script once we've calculated the score, how close we've managed to hit to the red little dot, and then we can just display it on that canvas that pops up. So what we'll go ahead and do is click on our target script and open it up in Visual Studio. So here we have our target script. Let's go ahead and make it a little bit bigger. And if you remember our last lesson, this is where we're calculating our accuracy just to see how close we've managed to get to our target. And then we're sending that score back to our game manager. And it's here that we can actually go ahead and just add in a line. Let's put a comment in here, and we can just say display Score Canvas. So we can either add that code in here for displaying it, which makes perfect sense. It's in our shot method. So this is what gets triggered every time our target is shot. We want to kind of display the score. So that kind of works really well. So it makes sense to put it here. So we're going to need a couple of things in order to display the score. We're actually going to need a link to the canvas, the game object, or the prefab that we're going to instantiate every time the target is shot. And we're also going to need the TextMesh Pro game object that we can access and write our score to. Because we're using TextMesh Pro, we're going to have to put in a namespace here, and that is TM Pro. That's going to allow us to access all the TextMesh Pro libraries. And then we're going to add in the variables that we need. So we're going to create some more here. I'm going to put a header so it makes it clear where we're putting it. And we're going to put in here score components, components, and then we're going to, these are going to be private. They're only going to be accessed by this class, but we want to be able to see them in the inspector. So we'll go ahead and use serialized field. We're going to want a game object, and this is going to be our score canvas. You're also going to need another serialized field as a TextMesh Pro UGUI, and this is going to be our score text. We'll go ahead and save those, and if we jump back into Unity, we'll see now that our target has got our score components where we can drag in our score canvas. That's a canvas you just made. Hopefully you've made it into a prefab. Simply drop that little canvas into that little slot, and now you see here we can't actually access our text object for this. So we're going to go ahead and assign this in our code. It doesn't actually need to be visible in our target in the inspector, so let's go ahead and tweak that. Silly me, I thought we'd be able to get hold of it easily. Nothing's ever easy. Damn it. So we go ahead, I'm just going to put that in there just to keep obvious what's going on. And then when it's shot, we want to display the score canvas. So I'm going to create a temporary game object that's created canvas equals, and then we want to instantiate it, and we want to instantiate our score canvas, and we're going to do it for now just at the transform dot position, and we'll give it the rotation of quaternion dot identity. How do we go ahead and access the text and give it the right score value? Because we've stored this instantiated game object inside created canvas, we can say created canvas dot transform dot get child, and then we want to put 0. This is going to be the first child inside of our created canvas. So if you remember, jump back quickly, this is the game object we're instantiating, and we're using get child to get the child at index 0, which is going to be the first child, which is score text. At least in this example, if you've got other things like you've got a panel or you've got some kind of graphic or image that's before this, then you need to be a bit more elaborate about how you specify which child you want. But just to keeping this simple, we're just going to get the child at index 0, which is our score text, and we can say get component, and we want to get the text mesh pro UGUI, and we can say dot text is going to be equal to, and this is where we're going to give it our score, which we've already calculated, and we've already passed over to the game manager, which is here. So we use that same variable, and we can say score dot toString. So let's go ahead and test this and see where we are. So let's have a look here. Let's go ahead and shoot the start button. We're going to get our countdown, and then we'll go ahead and shoot our target. Cool. So it's instantiating our target, and it's putting the right score in, looking down there at the console, and we just need to get rid of those decimal points. And also another thing, if you shoot the other targets, you're going to get a crash, or it's going to stop and you're going to get a null reference exception, and that's cool. That's just because we assigned our score prefab to our targets yet, because we need to actually do that on all of them. So let's do that now. We've got it on this one, which is our first one. Go to our second target. We need to drag in our score canvas. So let's drag that in there. Do that for the third one. Nice. Okay. And then back in Visual Studio, let's sort out our dodgy decimal places. We don't want all those. So where we've got our score.toString, we're going to format the text. We're just going to say 0. It's going to give it no decimal places and just round that number up. I think it rounds it up. Anyway, it gets rid of the decimal places. We also need to bump that canvas position up a little bit. So we're going to need to assign where we instantiate it. We're just going to need to force that up just so it's not sitting in the middle. We could create a vector free here. We can call this canvas position. It's terrible naming. It should be small c, big P. I'm going to say this is equal to a new vector free. Is the transform dot position dot x, and transform dot position dot y, and then we're going to say plus an offset value. So we're just going to bump it up a little bit. And from memory, I think our targets are about 30 centimeters. So if we were to bump it up by, let's try 15. And ideally, we wouldn't put in a number here. We would create a variable and assign it that way through the inspector. In fact, let's do that. Let's just do this proper. Let's go back up to where we've got our score components. Create another serialized field. And this is going to be a float. And this is our canvas Y offset. Like so. And we can give it default value here. So we can say equals 15. And then down here we can say canvas Y offset. And it's going to be at our transform Z position. We created a new vector free for this canvas position. So where we're creating that canvas, where we're instantiating it, let's go ahead, take out transform position, put canvas position, and then go ahead and save. So literally we've just added these 3 lines here to this script just to display our score canvas, as well as the few variables we've got just up there. So let's jump back into Unity and see if this is working. Alright, let's go back, let's have a look at this now. Pick up our gun, shoot to start. 3, 2, 1. Good for gunslinging action. Target. What the motherfudger? Okay, the canvas is not there. Let's have a look in our hierarchy. It's instantiated one. Where has it gone? What the heck? Ah, I see. So it's instantiated it, but it's like way up there, and that's because it should have been in our script on our canvas offset. We've put 15. That's actually 15 meters. I'm so good at maths. It needs to be a 0.15. And go ahead and save that. One of you eagle-eyed YouTubers managed to spot that mistake before I went and did that. So let's give that another go. Let's change this canvas Y offset in all of these, so it should be 0.15. And that one as well. Like so. Oh, would be cool to have a little slider there. Could have done that as well, that would be neat. Okay, so let's try that again. Back into VR. Should work on all the targets as well now we've put the prefab in. There we go. Oh, I just need to go a bit higher on that offset probably. Nice. And then you see what we've got to do next is actually have them removed after a certain period of time. So we'll bump up that little offset a little bit just to get it in the right place. So next we'll take a look at actually removing that after a period of time. And to do that, we're just going to write a simple like destroy me script on the score canvas that once it's instantiated into the scene, starts a little counter and then just deletes itself after 3 seconds. Let's go ahead and have a look at that. So let's go to our scripts folder. And we're going to go to UI and we're going to create a new script. And we're going to call this, we'll just call it destroy canvas, like so. And then we'll go ahead and double click to open up in Visual Studio. This is going to be a very simple script. All we're going to do here is create a serialized field. It's going to be a float, and this is going to be destroy time. And as soon as it's started, destroy. You see under destroy, once you type that and put your brackets, you get a couple of options. Have option 1, which is you destroy the object like straight away, or option 2, the one we're going to use, which is going to be to remove a game object, component or asset, but it's also got a float t here for time, so we can specify when it's to delete. When this runs, it's going to destroy this .game object after a certain amount of time, which is going to be our destroy time. You can save that. You can also make an expression body by pressing Control and full stop, and say use expression body for method. And that's literally it. So let's test it out. Let's minimize. You'll need to go to your prefab folder where you've got your canvas and go to add component, and you're going to say destroy canvas. I'm just going to put that script on there with the destroy time of probably, let's say 3 seconds is probably enough. So then that's all allocated now to that prefab. So I'm going to go ahead and run. As soon as that prefab's instantiated, the start method's automatically called. We'll shoot. 1, 2, 3, boom, gone. And then you can go ahead and carry on. 7. That's a very good score. Boom. So now we've had a look at instantiating the canvas and giving it the score and getting rid of it. Let's have a look at making it a little bit more interesting. Let's say, like when you shoot it, it appears, it fades in and slowly goes up and fades out, a bit more like those traditional shooting games that you're probably used to seeing. And we're going to do that all through animation, so let's have a look at that now. So let's take a look at animating our score canvas. Go ahead, let's just drop it in the scene for a minute, and we'll go ahead, we'll add a component to this. We'll put a animator on there, and go to our animation folder in our project, and we'll create a new controller. This controller to our animator on our score canvas prefab. Next, we need the animation window open, so we're going to go ahead, just click on window, animation, and you should see this window pop up, which is perfect. That's what we want. And you'll notice here we've got, almost my head in the way. It is, isn't it? You'll notice here it says to begin animating score canvas prefab, create an animation clip. So we're going to go ahead and click on create and navigate to our animation folder, which I'm in anyway, and we'll call this score canvas animation. And now you see it's changed a little bit. We're able to scrub through the timeline and also chord and add keyframes and whatnot. So I'm going to go ahead and dock this. You still see it? Yes, you can. So with the score canvas prefab selected, let's go ahead, and at first we want the canvas to fade up and then fade down once the score's been displayed. We can do that easily by going to add component. Because we're using a canvas, we can add a canvas group, and then you'll see this alpha here. This gives us the ability to control everything that's underneath, or everything contained within this canvas. So by default it's going to be on 0. I'm going to go ahead, hit record, move it to about half a second. It's there, and I'm going to make that 1. So it's going to fade up, and it's going to be on screen for about a second and a half, or maybe 2 seconds. We'll test that, and then we'll take it to 3, and we'll set it to 0, so it's faded out. Put it back to 2 seconds, and set it back to 1. So what we've got here is a fade up, stays on screen, and then it's going to fade down. So that's the fade for the score. Let's have it also so it fades as it's fading up. It's also moving upwards. So what we'll do is we'll move our timeline all the way to the end, just after 3 seconds, because we want it to keep moving as it's fading. And we're just going to change its Y position. Just put it up ever so slightly, like that. So as the score that's displayed, if you can imagine, we shot the target, and it's going to go boom. That's really nice. Just gives it a nice little touch. What we can do, just to neaten off that animation, is select the keyframes for our anchored position. Right click, go both tangents, and say linear. So it is, rather than like a smooth acceleration to the animation, it's just going to be straight in at the right speed, and it's going to stay consistent throughout. So I'm going to slow down near the end or anything. So that's the animation. You can go ahead and press the little red enable disable keyframe and come out of recording mode, because we're done with that for now. So now if you go to window, animation, animator, you can see here we have our score canvas animation, which is using this animation track we just created. You can go ahead and click on this, and you see it's got loop time here. We're going to go ahead and turn that off, and to keep looping through. Just want it to play once. And you can see as soon as our game object is put into our scene, this is the entry, it's going to go straight to our score canvas animation. So that animation will play the second prefab is instantiated. Because we've added a few components onto here now, we need to go up to our overrides and go to apply all. This is going to assign all those changes back to the prefab, so that we can now go ahead and safely delete it from the scene. Now let's jump into VR and give this the last test. Okay, so let's test this out. Let's go ahead and shoot our target. Then we can shoot And you can see we've got a little bit of a problem. They're popping up, but they're popping up on the floor, and that's because, like a moron, I've animated the Y position of the canvas. So it's playing that animation, and it wants to play the Y position from 0, where we did the original recording. But we actually need to animate the child of the canvas, which is that text mesh pro object. That's an easy fix. So let's have a quick look at doing that now. Let's drag in our score canvas prefab back in, and make sure we've got our animation window open. So we're going to select our score canvas. I'm going to take my head off so we can see what's going on. Underneath where we're looking at the anchored position, this is where we're changing the Y position. Let's go ahead and remove that property. So now it's just fading up and down. What we're going to do is drop down and select the score text. Go ahead and hit record, and then move it to just after 3 seconds, and then move that up like so. And we can do exactly the same. We can select those 2 keyframes, right click, and change the tangents to linear. And then when we hit play, you can see that it's got exactly the same effect. But this time we're not affecting the Y value of our canvas, because we need that to be in a certain position. We're just changing the Y value of the child, which is our score text. So we'll go ahead, select the root object of our prefab, go to overrides and hit apply all. And we'll remove that from our scene. And let's try that one more time. This is why I love game development. You always get these weird little things you don't think about. I probably should, but there we go, much better. Now the score's popping in. Minus 1,000. How on earth do I do that? Of course, that's working great. And you can make it a little bit more gamey. So where we've got our target scripts, let's go ahead and click on our target script. Put it in debug mode. There we go. Go ahead and click on your target script. And where we're changing the text here, we can put in a speech mark and then a plus, and then close the speech mark off, and then do another plus. And all that there is simply going to do is put like a little plus symbol in front of the score. There we go. You see there, the score looks much more official. Because it's a text mesh pro object, you can go ahead and change the font to whatever you want. So we could select our score canvas prefab and drop it in, select the text, and then we can change the font. Got Dust West here, and then you can do some cool stuff with that. So we can turn on, just quickly crank up the alpha so we can see what we're playing with. And then because I'm using Text Mesh Pro, I can add like a color gradient to that. We can do something quite snazzy. Do like a cool color gradient. And a bit of a weird glow if you want. So you can go ahead and play with some of these values and get something that looks quite cool. Don't forget, if you do any changes to your prefab, to apply them. And then you should have quite a nice little score system that you can give visual feedback to the player on just how well they're doing. So there we go, that's the end of the video. Now we have a really cool system for displaying to the user the score that they've achieved by hitting the target. So if you found this video useful and it's been of some help to you, then please consider leaving a like on the video or subscribing. Thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.